So this topic that I'm presenting now is something that I just touched on a bit before, just to fill in for when slideshow button, click on the slide. Oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah, to fill in for when Bunny Reinmarsh was in hospital. Okay, so this is about caring for marble deities, and specifically looking at white marble. There's the I think you need to mute the Hangsa because we can hear. Yeah, like white marble seems to be quite different from black marble. It's much, black marble is much harder. White marble seems to be quite porous, etc. So one of our themes for this year is maintaining Srila Prabhupada's legacy. Along with maintaining Prabhupada's legacy, we also need to maintain the deities that we have been entrusted to care for. And it's really important, at least for us in the ministry, it's important for us to try to understand how to maintain the deities so that we can then share this information with you. So, as I mentioned on the first call or the first group session we had, I met with a devotee in Paris who's an art restoration expert, and I had an hour and a half conversation with him. It was quite enlightening for me. And just about the nature of marble, because he deals a lot with marble statues and things. So marble's like it's a metamorphic rock consisting of carbonate minerals that recrystallize under heat and pressure and different liquids and stuff like that. And it's kind of made of limestone or limestone type of materials, dolomite, things like that. Sometimes marble's referred to as living stone, and what that means is because it's like a porous material, it absorbs moisture via a capillary action. It means like because the pressure outside is less than the pressure inside, and it's sort of like the moisture just moves into the marble, which over time can cause the marble to appear like it's aging. So I wanted to just give you a few sort of pictures of the types of damage that can happen to marble, largely due to moisture, but there's some other damage I want to show you. Can you put on the next slide, please, Hangsa? Right, so this one here, you can see, I'm not sure how clear you can see this, but on the left-hand picture, you see this blackish mark, and there's a bit of brown mark there. Now, this is actually black mold inside inside the marble, and then similar thing that's on the deity's back, on his shoulder, and the other on the picture on the right side is on his arm, or on the deity's arm. I'm assuming it's a male deity, but I could be wrong. The next one, please. So this is one type of. Sorry, go back, Hangsa. Sorry. This is one type of damage, and this happens due to water. Now, there's a conversation that took place in Vrindavan. I think it was in 1976. And what was happening is the devotees were bathing the deities. It happened in Mumbai, they were bathing deities. And then also in Vrindavan, they were bathing the marble deities daily and on abhisheks and things like that. And Srila Prabhupada, he explained to the devotees that they should never touch the deities with anything wet because the shine goes out of the deity. So this is one of the points we try to encourage the devotees is rather than bathing the deities or wetting the deities, with wet cloths and stuff, particularly marble deities, wipe them down with a dry cloth. Now, this next one is kind of interesting because the quality of marble is often not very good. It has like gray veins in it, and also I think like when they first started making deities, like you look at some deities like Radharani in Mayapur, for instance, she's made of what they call super white marble, and this marble is very, very white, and there's you can't see the crystalline structure in it. This marble has become quite rare. So these days they're just using whatever marble they can get out of the mines. But and the Indian marble is quite different from the Italian, Turkish, and Chinese marble. Indian marble is quite hard, so it's very suitable for deities. Now you'll see on this picture on the left, it looks like Radharani's left arm, if you look closely, you should be able to see that it's actually paint over the marble, and towards the right hand side of her arm, you can see a bit of grayness there, where the paint is wearing off. But on the right hand side of left hand side of her arm, you can clearly see paint there. Now, if you look at the picture on the right, when the devotees sent this to me, they were like horrified, like, what's happening to Radharani's feet? They couldn't understand. But as soon as I saw it, I realized that they're painted over the marble to hide the imperfections in the marble. And it's quite common these days when you get marble deities, they've actually painted over them to make them look like they're shiny white, but actually they're not white. They're different colors underneath. There's imperfections in the marble. Next one, please, Hangsa. Now, this is a deity that's been worshipped in ISKCON for many, many years. It's beautiful Radharani deity. But you'll notice these marks on her face, like especially on her left cheek. You see this quite large, 3 marks together. Then on her nose, on her right cheek, and on her chin as well. So this is the result of not caring for the deity very well. Actually, very poor care. And this temple's got quite a checkered history of many head pujaris and devotees coming and going. And this is one of the things, like I always try to focus on in the ministry, is just to encourage devotees in their service. And I'm sure many of you have had that experience with me, how, I'm very active in trying to encourage in the service, because one of the best things you can do in deity worship is be consistent. It's just offer consistent worship, care for the deities consistently, and you'll get wonderful reciprocation from the Lord, because the opportunity to serve the deities is the most extraordinary service. Prabhupada told the GBC, I think it was in 76, it might have been 75. He said the Pujari is the most fortunate person in the world, because the Pujari is directly dealing with Krishna. The deity is not like, the deity is directly Krishna. Pratimanahi Tumi Saksha Brajendanandana. That's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It mentions how the deity is directly Krishna. There's no difference between Krishna and deity. So when you're serving the deity, you're actually directly interacting with Krishna. So you see here how, due to inappropriate care over the years, moisture along with various microorganisms has actually entered into the marble, and the deities become damaged. And like marble can be when you sort of when marble is touched by acids, or when you put any type of acid on the marble, it interacts or it reacts with the calcium carbonate in the marble, and it produces carbonic acid, which decomposes really quickly when it mixes with carbon dioxide, which is in the air, and also water. So if you put anything acidic on the marble, it's really going to degrade the marble quickly. So things like lemon juice, vinegar, anything like that. And this is one of the things is like, if for some reason you do an abhishek of the marble deities, first off, I'd say don't. But if you really feel you have to, please don't put anything acidic, like no orange juice, anything like that. Don't put anything acidic. Even yogurt is acidic, and it's going to react with the marble, and it'll cause the marble to degrade very, very quickly. And also, in the water, this is one thing that this devotee in France explained to me. In the water, when it gets into the marble, then you get these microorganisms. They'll enter into the water. Especially, there's one called halocaliphilic methyl. I can't even say the word, methyllotrophic bacterium. And it causes the marble to deteriorate quite rapidly. So bacterial and fungal degradation. Also there's one called black cladosporium, which is I think that's the black mold that I was showing you before. So you get microorganisms, you get bacteria and fungus also can affect marble. So we need to be very, very careful when we're dealing with marble. Can you show the next one, please, Hansa? So this is the same deity after she was restored, and you can see there's a substantial difference. Of course, she looks a little bit flat because she's had various treatments on her skin. She doesn't have the normal shine, but you can see actually much better. There's still on her left cheek, you can see a little bit of a mark there. This is actually a famous mark. Anyway, I won't go into the story because then you know who it is. And then also on her nose. Yeah, so with proper care and saying like wipe down with a dry cloth. This devotee who's the art restorer, he mentioned using what they call a flannel or a flannelette, which is just a soft, fluffy cotton cloth, pure cotton. And you just wipe them down with that. And so the idea is like you keep them free from dirt, from dust, from all these types of things. Because because if, for instance, there's dust or anything like that sitting on the skin of the deity, moisture gets into that, then the moisture enters into the deity, and then you've got problems. Yeah. Same with soot and things like that. I actually should have added another photo in here, which I can show soot on the leg of one of the deities. I cleaned it off. Really incredible. Next photo, please, Hunks Avatar. So that's all the damage teas. I just wanted, because we talked about it on the first call, the Ghee, effective Ghee. Before we go into that, I'll explain it. Prabhupada, in a conversation with Lakshmi Moni, I don't think it's recorded, but she told me this personally. He explained to Lakshmi Moni that every Ekadasi to rub a small amount of ghee on the marble deities. Now, if you're not doing this already and you're thinking to do this, I would suggest you test it on an area of the deities you can't see, just to see if there's any color change. But also make sure the ghee you're using is pure ghee, and not that it's or two things to be concerned about. There are some low quality ghees that are actually made of animal fat, and by animal fat I don't mean milk or butter. I mean like fat from the meat industry. So you need to make sure it's not that type of ghee, and also make sure there's no coloration in it, because if there's coloration in it, you'll discolor the deities. Right? Can we see the next slide? So this is where I live here in Australia. This is Govardhanadari. And so you can see he's got a little bit of shine, but he's actually quite flat. Now the next one, please, Hungsa. This is like after we've been rubbing ghee for I don't know, maybe 2 years. You can see it's quite different. So this is a black marble. Next one, please. This is Balaram. So here we have Gaunitai, Radha Govardhanadari, and Krishna Balaram. So this is Balaram. And you can see it's got a bit of shine, but flat. And the next one, please. And so you can see much more shine to the deity. And I recall that after we started doing this, like basically 6 months after, Bhattahari from Alatra, you'll know him, Vijay Radha. He came here and said, "What are you doing? The deities look stunning." It's just all we did is we wiped them down with dry cloths, and every Ekadasi we put a little bit, like a very small amount of ghee, just like on one deity, like be that much ghee, like half a teaspoon of ghee over the whole deity, and wipe it off with a dry cloth. Okay. Any comments or questions about that? I think that's the last one, isn't it, Hudson? Yeah, that's the last one. Any comments or questions on that? Yes, Vijay Radhamaji.
I was wondering, what about oils? We put a tiny bit of oil for fragrance on the marble deities. We don't bathe them with oil, but we just put a little bit of oil. Is that all right or not?
I know one temple where the Pujaris, despite the head Pujari's attempts to stop them from doing it, they massage the deities with oil every day. And this has discolored the deity. I mean, the deity of Lord Chaitanya is actually starting to go yellow as a result of the oil, because a lot of these oils have got coloration in them. I would be inclined to avoid. This is what you have Utsav deities for. Utsav deities are more for this kind of, for massaging with oil, putting oil on, stuff like that. Not the marble deities. You see, the thing is, like this devotee was explaining to me, marble is porous. Don't put any liquids on the marble because it'll absorb them. And so that means even like with like some temples you see where they'll paint Balaram's face, for instance. I think even in the if you look at this in the slideshow, the picture of Balaram, he had some blue paint on his face. Or sometimes you'll see now, it's becoming quite common now, is devotees will put that pink stuff on right around his face, the red stuff, rouge, whatever they call it.
Yeah.
And I've seen some deities
Yeah.
where marble's actually gone pink because it absorbs into the skin. And this is not a practice that's coming from our founder Acharya. It's not a practice that's coming from the previous Acharyas. Therefore, why are we doing it? It's just, it seems to me it's probably more motivated by some mundane concepts about beauty. But, at least in my observation, when I look at the deities here, they're so effulgent, they're so beautiful. We don't need to do anything like that. They're just very, very, I find them very, very attractive. So it's better to avoid putting any kind of thing on the deity's skin that's going to be absorbed because you run the risk of discoloring the deities. And some of this discoloration is permanent. It's like you'll never get rid of it once it starts. Achyuta Chaitanya Prabhu is asking, regarding the gopi dots on a white marble deity, it seems to me that any paint can be absorbed, especially with prolonged use. Is it possible at the next meeting that we can clarify the issue regarding painting and also decorating deities made of white marble? Yeah, I wouldn't put anything like that, on deities made of white marble. No gopi dots, no stick on. Like sometimes I've even done it myself, but after getting this information from this art restoration expert, I wouldn't even use the stick-on gopi dots now because the glue will penetrate the marble. So if you have marble deities, you need to be very, very careful. And also another thing with marble deities, especially if you have small marble deities, is marble breaks very easily. I've had experience of that. I've seen many deities in ISKCON have been broken, and sometimes they're broken very simply. It's not like it's hard to do. So we just have to be very, very careful when we're handling marble deities. If you handle them appropriately, there's not going to be any problem. But if we start, speculating, if we start doing things that aren't really suitable, then at some point you'll notice over time the color of the deities is changing. The deities are going sort of gray, or they're going yellow, or what. I've seen plenty of deities like that. They have a gray look about them, or they're yellow, or whatever. So yeah, avoid putting anything on the deities apart from clothes and jewelry. Anything else?
I have a couple of questions which are not related to marble deity. Two devotees asked me if I can ask now or on their behalf or later.
Yeah.
Okay. So one is from Mahasankarshan Prabhu. He asked that if one is worshipping shaligrams, he has 3 or 4 shaligrams. If he has to travel, can he carry one shaligram and worship that shaligram on behalf of the rest of the shaligrams which are at home? Because there are security issues also, airport security issues while carrying the shaligram. And he saw in Gaur Govind Maharaj's a video that one can put the shaligrams to rest. So what is the proper way of worshipping shaligram when one is traveling?
Yeah, normally you wouldn't. I mean, I know devotees who do things like that, but once you start the worship of a deity, you should never stop. It's for life. It's like a lifetime sentence, Not really a sentence, but it's pretty ecstatic. But yeah. So if you can't travel with the deities, make an arrangement for someone else to care for them. But you can't just put them in a cupboard and pretend. It's just like, if you've got 4 children and you can only afford to travel with one of them, what do you do with the other 3? You put them in a cupboard and take care of them when you get home. I know what they do in other countries, but in Australia they put you in jail for things like that. So I would say, make proper arrangements so the deities are cared for. Yeah. And the other question?
The other one is devotee is asking, I have a question in regards to Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day. When we do his Aarti, we started at 7:20 p.m., the time he left his body. Is this correct? Then the deities, Gaur Aarti starts at 7:30 p.m. My temple management want to confirm this. How long is Srila Prabhupada's Aarti supposed to last when this is done in the temple room? They want to clarify the practicalities of this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be quite an established tradition in ISKCON that the Aarti is offered to Prabhupada at that time. When he passed away. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a big Aarti, it doesn't have to be a long Aarti, it can be quite simple, or quite short, but yeah, it should be, well, I'm not saying it should be done because it's not based on any Shastric Pramana or anything like that, but it's become a tradition within ISKCON, and this tradition was no doubt established by senior Vaishnavas, from Prabhupada's, disciples and things like that. So naturally we would honor that because it's been established by the senior Vaishnavas. Okay. Ramanya Prabhu. Are you there, Ramanya? I can see your hand up, but you've disappeared.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dandavas Pranam. Is that okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Thanks for joining us.
Can you hear me? Yeah, Dandavas Pranam. Yeah, going back to the massaging the deities with oil, I think that's indicates in the deity worship procedure only the small deities. That's why we have the small deities.
Yeah.
Brass deities to massage with oils. It's very dangerous to massage the marble deities with oil. Is very risky and dangerous because the oils, they're with chemicals. They're not pure oils. So some devotees, they put a lot of oil in the marble deities, especially in Alatra. And there's some spots and some deities. It damages the marble unless it's a pure oil, which is very expensive. A ghee, yes, Prabhupada said. Go ahead.
Each type of deity has its particular function. You'll see in a Pancharatrik temple, they'll have different deities for different functions. And you'll have like you have like your Cheyenne deity, you'll have your Bolg deity, you'll have all these different functions. So one is used for offering Bolga to, one deity is offered for putting to bed. They have other deities they take out on particular festivals, different deity for other festivals. So in ISKCON, all this seems to be amalgamated into the Utsav deity. So the Utsav deity is used for all those functions. We bathe the Utsav deity, we massage them with oil, we put them on swings, we do all that sort of stuff. We don't do that with the marble deities. The function of the marble deities is darshan. That's their function.
Right.
So we need to understand these things so we don't mix them up. And that's what's happening is devotees, they mix things up.
Yeah, that's my comment. To put oils on the marble deities is dangerous. And to paint the face, like you're saying, Nrsimha Kavaca Prabhu, the Ghee, Prabhupada said also in Los Angeles, only in a case is to polish the deities, the white marble deities with Ghee. Black marble too. And they look very special, very bright, shiny. But the small deities are for bathing and offering bog, and the big deities for dressing and offering arti. So it's right there in the Archana Padati that you mentioned. So that's one problem that I noticed in many ISKCON temples. I just came back from Mexico, and then in Alatra, they paint the white marble deities with stuff that I have to write a letter with the temple administration and the GBC, to paint the white marble deities. So that's one problem we have in ISKCON. And the oil. That's for the small deities to massage. Yes.
We'll have to get David to change the picture of the deity on his Zoom thing because
so that the ISKCON Deity Worship Ministry would be nice to write an official document and send it to all the ISKCON temples, authorized by the GBC with you.
We're getting there with that. We're just working through these worship things one at a time. Yeah.
It's like the last time. Go ahead.
Well, just another thing is like, this is one of the reasons we do this Sangha, is so we can help all of you to understand proper aspects of, the proper way of worshiping. See, another area that often devotees get confused is if you look at the 16 items of worship that are given by Sanatana Goswami, when he talks about the worship, because it's broken into different sections. You've got reception, bathing and dressing, then worship, and then concluding activities. So in the worship, it says Ganda, Pushpa, Dupa, Deepa, Naivedya. So what happens, and this is like, the order it goes in. But what happens, a lot of devotees think, oh, it's Bog offering an arti, so they change the order. But actually the order is first the sandalwood, then the flowers, then the incense, then the lamp, then eating the food. Because arti, if you look in the list of 64 items that he gives, arti occurs there 3 or 4 times. So it's just a matter of understanding the science of deity worship as it's practiced, throughout the Gaudiya Sampradaya, throughout the different Sampradayas. That they all have, you'll have similarity in the practice. They all have their list of 16 items. There's very little variation in the list of 16 items, and they all follow it the same way. But just because we don't understand these things, we think, oh, this must mean that, and then we just, get it mixed up. That's all.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's another question from a devotee who's asking that because of time, place, and circumstances, there are not enough Brahmin initiating devotees to perform deity worship in temple, and some initiated but not Brahmin devotees want to perform or help in deity worship in temples, such as dressing the deities. Is this appropriate or allowed?
Interesting pastime. It happened in Sydney in 1970, maybe 2 or 3. Prabhupada, I think I've told this pastime before. Prabhupada sent, he had this set of Radha Krishna deities. They're only about 18 inches tall, and he sent them to Australia, to Sydney. And at that time in Sydney, they'd moved a lot. They moved from one place to the next, the next, the next. So by the time the deities had arrived, the devotees had moved, temple 2 or 3 times, addresses 2 or 3 times. So they didn't have the right address. So the deities sat at the docks for several months, and they shipped them back to India. Then Prabhupada got those deities back, and then he used them in one of the Pandal programs he was doing. And then his next port of call, or his next destination, was Sydney, Australia. So he brought the deities to Sydney, Australia, and he installed them. But at the time, there was like 1 or 2 Brahmins in the temple. And so Prabhupada also did an initiation. And the way Korma Prabhu describes it is practically everyone in the temple who got initiated got Brahmin at the same time. So rather than having non-Brahmins worshipping the deities, he gave everyone Brahmin Diksha, even though he may have thought they were unqualified. And then a really interesting part of the pastime is when Prabhupada was leaving, he came before the deities. He's offering prayers to the deities. He says, "My dear sir, I'm leaving you in the hands of these malechas. I cannot help you. You please train them." So Prabhupada, he took a risk. He didn't have non-Brahmins doing deity worship. He took a risk. Because who's the risk for? It's a risk for him because he's going to get the karma of these unqualified persons. But rather than having non-Brahmins worship the deities and going against the principle of Shastra, he accepted potentially unqualified people. David Prabhu?
Prabhu, I just wanted to add something to the question earlier about the arti of Srila Prabhupada. So ideally, we shouldn't change the deity's arti times. And generally, Gaura artis, depending on which country it is, between 6:30 and 7 p.m. And the normal arti would finish by 20 past, generally. That's what we do in South Africa anyway. So just one comment there.
Yeah, although I do think for festivals that you can have, I mean, obviously it's something for the management to decide. It's not something we should decide on our own, but you can have some variation in time with festivals. It's the difference between what they call Nitya Seva, which means your daily worship, and Naimitika Seva, which means the festival worship. So you can have some variation, but it's something that should be worked out in advance and not spontaneously as the festival's going on. Yeah. So yeah, just something to add to it.
Sure.
Okay. Anything
Thank you.
else at all? Nice.